A few weeks ago, one of our museum members, Alan, reached out to me to let me know that he ran into something scary up at the blueberry bog. Well, let's hear directly from Alan about what happened.
My name is Alan. I went up to the blueberry bog for a weekend camping trip with my eldest son. He's a mechanical engineer, 37-year-old. We got there on the Friday afternoon, set up 2 tents at the end of the lake. No campfire, so it was extremely cold. Still a ban. And nothing really happened on the Friday. We had our dinner, went to bed. We were turned in about 10 o'clock. By about midnight, I was laying in the tent and I heard a crystal clear crack, wood on wood, which I would assume would be a tree knock. And then a few seconds later, from further across the lake, more distant, there was a response which was like a moan, like a woo. It wasn't a howl or a whoop, it was a moan. Went back to sleep. Got up the next morning, first thing my son says, "Dad, did you hear the tree knock and the moan?" So I knew I wasn't dreaming and he was the same. So that was basically that part of it. Next day we go hiking. Hike in the morning, lunch at the lake, hike in the afternoon. Come back in the evening, we have dinner early because it was getting dark by around 6:30. Around 8:15, there was a full moon, so there was some light. And our tents were at the end of the lake, probably 30 yards from the tree line in the corner. And around 8:15, he said to me, he was looking over my shoulder, talking to me, he said, "I've just seen something out the corner of my eye." He described what he thought he saw was around 7 feet tall, 2 legs, dark brown, come out of the tree line, run along the tree line and go back in. So that was that incident. Then about 15 minutes later, we heard the scariest thing I've ever heard. It was terrifying. It was extremely loud. You actually felt the sound through you. It was just like that loud, and it was a cross between a screaming woman, a banshee, Native American war cry, just the weirdest shrieking, horror, just terrifying noise. And about 3 or 4 seconds later, there was a real deep whoop, whoop, whoop from what appeared to be, I thought it was down the tree line, but he was facing it and he thought it was up on the ridge above, but it was in response to this thing. And it was terrifying. It was literally terrifying. So he jumped straight up. His first words are, "We're going, Dad, we're leaving." And I said, "Well, you've got like $2,000 worth of camera equipment. We had 2 tents, backpack, all of our gear, and it's pitch black now." He said, "I don't care, Dad. Whatever's in that woods could rip us apart. We're leaving now." But we were terrified, so I didn't argue with him. We literally grabbed car keys, cell phone, wallet, and ran for it. And then we literally drove home in the middle of the night. It was terrifying. And then we get home. The wife looks at us and she said, "Well, I can't believe you've come home. This is what you went for. You went squatching. This is what you wanted." And we said, "No, not that." It was still the most terrifying thing we've ever experienced. And so, go to bed, get up the next morning. My son says, "Well, we've got to go get the gear, Dad." So we got back up there at first light. We actually took the wife with us this time. And we were still terrified when we got there. Our gear was okay. We broke camp quicker than anyone could ever break camp. We were just terrified. And we were looking over our shoulders all the time because it was a scary experience. Put the stuff in the car and I said, "Let's go back and check that everything's cleaned up." So we checked, no garbage. And before we leave, we'd had the whole weekend, we hadn't done a whoop, a tree knock. We'd done nothing. We'd been very quiet. I said, "I'm going to do a whoop." So I do a whoop, nothing happens. Do a second whoop and we get crack, crystal clear tree knock, and we all went, "That's it, we're done." And the 3 of us left.
After hearing that story, I clearly had to go check it out. I was going to go up there alone and poke around because I kind of like to do that, but you know what? I realized that one of my good friends was in town right now, which is a rare occurrence. So I called Kelly LeMieux. Kelly LeMieux is the bass player for a pretty big rock and roll band called Buckcherry. They had a few hits in the 90s and stuff, but he's really interested in Sasquatch stuff. I met him at the museum one day, kind of showing his friend around and talking about, "Oh, Dr. Krantz and this and that, Dr. Meldrum." He knows his stuff, but he's not really a woods guy. So I wanted to take him out to do his first ever Bigfoot investigation. Kelly, you stoked to go Bigfooting?
Yeah. Does Bigfoot shit in the water? Oh, that's just a rumor.
When we got out to the location, I put a video camera in his hand because you never know what he might see. You know, maybe he can film a Sasquatch after all. It was the first time he'd ever done anything like this, and apparently he didn't realize that blue meant night vision.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's all blue. It's blue.
But it's all right.
It's a trail, right?
We spent the first couple hours of our time there walking around and looking for footprints. Because if there was activity just a few days before, maybe there'd be some footprints lying around. We've gotten footprints from here before, like this print, and also this print. So they do leave footprints in this area. And if we could find more footprints, that would teach us something about the Bigfoots that frequent here. While walking around in the bog, all of a sudden we heard a shriek. It was a loud shriek, even though it wasn't close to us, but I know it was loud because I could hear the echoes coming our direction. It's like, "Wah!" Like that. Here's the recording. What did you hear?
Well, I was kind of moving, and I am a professional musician, so I hear this mostly, but I can still hear.
Yeah.
It sounded kind of eagle screechy to me from my brain, which
It sounded like a shriek.
It sounded like a shriek. Yeah. That's exactly what it sounded like. Shriek of the damned.
We both heard the shriek. I knew what that was not. That was not an elk. That was not a bird. That was not a lot of things. That's no coyote either. I think that was probably a Sasquatch. Kelly, well, he wasn't quite sure what we heard. And I'm not 100% sure what we heard either. But I think it was a Sasquatch because it sure matches the description that Alan gave of the sounds he heard at the same spot just a few days before.
It's a cross between a screaming woman, a banshee, Native American war cry, just the weirdest shriek and horror, just terrifying noise.
We continued walking around and looking inside and outside the tree line. After all, the thing did run outside the tree line for a few steps. Maybe we could find some evidence of it. We looked around and around and looked and around and looked and looked until at least sunset, and then the rest of the team showed up. Dave and Keith came out to meet us. We did a few howls, a few knocks, walked around even more. It was fun to watch Kelly because this was definitely the first time he'd ever walked around in the woods at night for Bigfoot stuff with the thermal imager and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun taking, new folks out Bigfooting for their first time, especially when they're as enthusiastic about the subject as Kelly is. But unfortunately, we didn't hear anything else, which is kind of aggravating because I know that they were there. At least I think that they were there. I mean, we heard that shriek earlier. Something big and loud and shrieky was nearby, but it didn't come in for a closer look, or at least if it did, we didn't know about it. So at the end of the night, we kind of decided to call it quits sometime after midnight or 1 a.m. Not sure, I didn't look at my watch. But Kelly had an idea. Let's leave something for him. He's heard of this sort of thing before, and why not? It's free, it's easy. Let's leave something out there for him.
What do you think?
You take a picture of it?
Yeah, come back and check it.
Yeah, when I put it.
I took and put these crazy little agate rocks over here. I hope they pick them up and go, ooh, these are neat. And just walk around with them, and maybe they'll put them someplace else. Maybe they'll switch them around. I don't know.
Just an experiment then.
I don't know. Just a little, I don't know. Just a little present. I've been, those were sitting around. Somebody gifted me those, and I'm re-gifting them to somebody else. It's a re-gift. Don't tell them. Shh.
Unfortunately, it snowed less than a week later before we had a chance to go up there again and check out the stones to see if they were still there or not. Whatever. They'll be there next spring when the thing melts. We didn't get to find any footprints, or we didn't have a sighting or anything, but we did get this interesting vocalization. At the end of the day, I don't know what made that vocalization, even though I'm inclined to think it was probably a Sasquatch. It sure matched the descriptions that Alan gave of the vocalizations he heard just a couple days before I was there. Well, we didn't find anything else, and that's just the way Bigfooting goes. But I was out with good people, we had a good time.
I'm the leprechaun.
Thank you once again for being members of the North American Bigfoot Center. You, our members, make videos like this possible. We couldn't be more grateful.